Lindsay Gwynn. I'm the Director of Assessment and Institutional Research at Washington and Jefferson College. I'm also the co-chair of our Middle States Steering Committee, and we are up for self-study in 1819. I'd also like to introduce to you my colleague, Linda Troost, who is Professor of English at Washington and Jefferson. We are a private liberal arts school located about 30 miles south of Pittsburgh. So today I'm going to talk to you about developing and implementing a general education assessment plan. So the learning objectives for this workshop today, I want you to learn how W&J College maps out a general education assessment plan. I want you to gain insight into how one might create a plan to educate faculty on general education assessment. And I want you to understand the value of general education assessment. I want to talk to you a little bit about W&J's assessment structure. The college often refers to me as the DARE, and I found that very funny. So I'm the Director of Assessment and Institutional Research, and I handle both academic assessment and administrative assessment. When I came to W&J, there was no faculty committee on assessment, and I felt it was very important for our institution to develop a structure a faculty structure for assessment as part of our governance structure. So as part of doing that, we developed a general education disappearing task force to directly deal with general education, and an academic affairs assessment committee that is made up of me, 5 faculty members appointed by the Vice President of Academic Affairs, that represent a group with attention to gender, to race, an area of specialty, and 1 faculty member that serves as a liaison to the curriculum and the program committee. Here's another diagram of our assessment committee structure about how we all work together and how I might work together with the Vice President of Academic Affairs, faculty department chairs, the Academic Affairs Assessment Committee, our curriculum committee, and our Middle States work group. And it's really important to have good relationships with your key stakeholders as you develop a general education plan. So I would encourage you to think about faculty structures and committees at your institution. As we first started to develop a general education assessment plan, we attended the American Association of Colleges and Universities General Education Assessment Institute in 2015. When we came away from the Institute, we learned a couple of really important things that I'd like to share with you. We do not have to assess everything every year. That will make faculty very happy. We do not have to assess every student. It's not about a single course. It's about the entire curriculum. And assessment and grading may and hopefully do overlap, but that they are not identical. So our goals in developing a general education assessment plan, we wanted a plan that was sustainable, a plan that was flexible, something that would build on the assessment we were already doing. It would accomplish our goals manageably, and will provide the institution-wide data that we need for Middle States.
All right. This is all actually connected to a new curriculum that the faculty voted in. At my college, the faculty is in charge under the bylaws of general education requirements for graduation, as well as setting the curriculum and things like that. So we are very, very protective of our turf. And one of the things we wanted to do as we were developing the revised, what's called the revised curriculum, not the new curriculum, sorry, is to try to build in assessment from the beginning. But the first thing we actually needed to do was to get a sense of what we actually wanted to accomplish as far as the curriculum was going. So the process of getting into assessment actually started a long time ago with establishing what we actually wanted to do. So we wanted to set up institutional learning outcomes that we wanted our students to come up with. We came up with 5 general ones, which are pretty standard: intellectual curiosity, grounded in interdisciplinary thinking, informed analysis and decision-making, integrity and individual agency, so and so and so and so. And then we had to figure figure out how this actually would fit in with an actual education at W&J. So for each of our little outcomes, we came up with some descriptive language of how we thought we might be able to teach this to our students, or that they would be able to get it during their 4 years at the college. For example, intellectual curiosity grounded in interdisciplinary thinking we described as, well, it's like lifelong learning, connecting natural and social sciences and arts and humanities to make meaning from experiences in the world. And then somebody always wanted these cute slogans, which I never liked. The next step that we came up with was, and this turned out to be a really good way to do it, come up with a new curriculum, was to take that particular set of descriptors and then figure out where in the curriculum we might be able to provide this to students. And we have a curriculum divide. We knew we wanted to have a 3-part curriculum. Foundation courses, which are things like the first year seminar, first year composition, a W course, required foreign language study and things like that. Breadth courses, where students have to take 1 to 2 courses in 6 subject areas. And then the depth area, which is essentially a major. So we took the various requirements that we wanted our students to have, figured out where we might be able to slot them in, and here's an example of one of those. We had the intellectual curiosity grounded in interdisciplinary thinking. We thought, well, we can do the grounded in interdisciplinary thinking perhaps at the foundation level, and then we could connect natural and social sciences, arts, and humanities to make meaning from experiences in the world, perhaps in the breadth department. So we've now had a sense of where these courses would be going, which would be very useful later when we had to figure out where to assess them. We knew where this stuff was going. The next test was we devised these wonderful outcomes for our students. Does this actually bear any relationship to what anybody actually needs us to do? So we had to look at the AAC&U's essential learning outcomes, and they've got 4 things here, which are pretty standard and nice, and discovered that, yeah, what we're doing is kind of what they were interested in doing. We then also had to look at what middle state specified learning outcomes have to get done at some point, and generated a list of that. And then we started putting it together a little bit. We have our 5 learning outcomes, and then we started plugging in the things from language from AAC&U and from the middle states to get a sense of what kind of capabilities our students might be able to get out of these. These would be the little places where assessment could happen. Something a little bit more specific. And here's a close-up of one of them. We're back to intellectual curiosity grounded in interdisciplinary thinking, which we decided would fit along very nicely with middle states and AAC&U language on critical analysis, critical thinking, creative thinking, integrated learning, and applying those with thinking. And then trying to do a matchup. So we have outcome is good old intellectual curiosity grounded in interdisciplinary thinking, which actually matches up with categories in middle state specified learning outcomes, that is critical analysis and critical reasoning, and it also actually connected with AAC&U's essential learning outcome on critical and creative thinking. So we thought, well, that's good. We don't seem to be completely in left field here with our curriculum. We're a very traditional kind of liberal arts college, so I think it was probably easier for us.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Gen Ed assessment schedule. So my first year at the college was in 2015-16, and so our first task was to decide what we would actually assess. And we decided that for us it was most important to assess things that perhaps were the easiest for us and put off some more challenging things later. So you'll see in our schedule, so in 15-16 we started to develop our assessment plans for technology literacy, writing, and oral communication. So we developed the plan in 15-16. We actually did the assessment in 16-17. So for 17-18, we started last year developing the assessment, and we are assessing critical analysis and reasoning, information literacy, quantitative reasoning, and scientific reasoning this year. Now, all of these things except information literacy is being assessed with a standardized rubric that we developed in-house based on the AAC&U value rubrics. For technology literacy, we are doing the assessment with the HEADS survey. Some of you may be familiar with that. That's how we're doing that. Now, we are still working on the assessment for 2018-2019, but we will be assessing integrity, integrative thinking, and diversity. talk to you a little bit about how we did the assessment for written communication. So we had to develop institutional learning outcomes for each of these items that we were assessing. They were approved and voted on by the faculty, which helped faculty buy-in that they were approved by the faculty. So the institutional learning outcome for writing, graduates will demonstrate the ability to produce written work with the following features: a controlling idea or thesis, supporting evidence, accurate sound analysis or explanation, a sense of audience, minimal mechanical errors, presentation of ideas appropriate to the discipline, understanding of genre and styles, conventions appropriate to the discipline, and correct documentation appropriate to the discipline.
It was actually the English department that was asked, I'd say back in 2000, under the previous curriculum, to develop some ideas for how we would define good writing. And it turned out we already had this list around, so we were just actually bringing that in and reusing it again. And it turned out to work fairly well. We also needed something that would work for every single department, because our rubric had to be something that could be used across all departments. What we ended up doing was having departments do the work because they already had their hands on the papers, and take something from their majors because they were available at the moment. We had to come up with something quickly that's worked, and assess a sample of their majors on their writing skills. So we had biology people rating biology posters from senior capstones. The English department was doing English capstones. Philosophy was doing philosophy papers. Foreign language people were actually trying to do all of the writing in the foreign language, and so we had to adapt that a little bit. And so you've got a copy of the rubric here. This just shows you a little bit of the beginning. Since we had already established our own definition of good writing, we didn't actually want to use the AAC and U1 because it didn't fit for what we needed to do quite so well. But we used it as a model with our own set of criteria and developed a 4-part catalog of categories that exceeds expectations, meets expectations, below expectations, or not acceptable. And so we had this nice little rubric. What was really, really valuable is it fits on the front side of one piece of paper. And that makes it just the right length to actually get people to do these things. So we did the assessment, we got all the results in, and this is what we got. We added everybody up in all the departments, and we discovered we did awfully well in all the 3 areas, and in those 3 areas, it was still pretty darn good. So we were actually fairly satisfied about that. We set as our bar students meeting expectations. A score of at least 3 or 4 was fine. So that was good. So we had the following fall at the faculty meeting. I stood up, and I'm on the CPC rep as also the writing person on the assessment committee. But I gave the report to the faculty about what we found out. And our goal had been 80% of the students would meet expectations, and we did quite well. 80% exceeded them in 5 areas, and not quite in 3 areas. So we fell short in analysis, mechanics, documentation, and the discipline. And so the task for each department was, especially those who are doing a lot of writing at the general education level, we have courses labeled W. For those departments in particular, to think about the courses in which they teach writing, to think about, well, is there anything you can do in those courses that might help with analysis, mechanics, or documentation, and the discipline, as well as, of course, writing the major as well. So we had a way of sort of going back. Now that we know where the little weak points are, what might we do about it? And when we do the next assessment in a couple of years, we'll see if it worked or not. Now, the trouble is we're actually grading students based on the previous curriculum and its writing requirements. So we don't actually know what the new curriculum has done yet because we instituted it only last year. But we'll have a baseline when we come around again about whether we were better under the old method or under the new method. Okay, and then we have next.
So our next example that we're going to talk to you about is how we assess oral communication. So our institutional learning outcome for oral communication is that graduates will demonstrate the ability to engage in effective oral communication by being able to deliver a presentation or engage in a dialogue centered on discipline-specific content, illustrating the following features: a clear purpose, content that supports the purpose, adapted adapted to the audience, group, and discipline, structure that supports the purpose, A, in the case of a presentation, structure and an intentional design with a clear beginning, middle, and end, and B, in the case of a dialogue, structure involves balancing, participation, and engaging in active listening. Information and knowledge used in an accurate and ethical manner, and when applicable, correct documentation appropriate to the discipline, and delivery appropriate to the speaker's ability that supports purpose.
And once again, we had a rubric that was put together by the committee based on a set of existing definitions of what we considered important criteria for oral communication. If you look at your handout, this is actually worth paying a little attention to. That middle number, we have two categories. One of them is for if students are giving an individual or formal presentation, we have one set of criteria. If the presentation being graded is actually a dialogue or a conversation, or sometimes we've had some people actually doing a class discussion that is being graded, then we have a slightly different set of criteria. It took us a while to work out how to get it onto the front side of one piece of paper, which I decided is really an important thing for a rubric, and to simplify and figure out commonality as much as possible. So once again, departments were asked to select some kind of a situation in one of their classes where they could assess the majors. I was actually doing this for the English department, so I was grading a bunch of reports on 18th century novels with one student presenting each class, and so I just got my staggered rubric sheets, and I used that actually as my class grading assignment, thereby saving myself the trouble of generating a grading sheet. And so that saved me a lot of trouble because I was able to combine my grading with assessment. And another colleague of mine the next semester did it with her classes as well. Other departments had capstone presentations all on one day that they assessed, but we all used exactly the same rubric. And generally what we found was we did really, really well here. What you discover is having a college where almost every one of your classes is under 25 students gives everybody a lot of chances to speak. And it really shows when it comes to the oral communication skills. We managed to achieve 80% in every one of the categories. And so what we learned from that was the oral communication requirement under our old curriculum, which we have now dumped, actually worked really well. So the question is, will the new one that we put in actually prove to be as successful as the one we just threw out? It would have helped to have been doing assessment a little earlier to have discovered that this actually worked extremely well. We might have thought better about dumping it so quickly. But we weren't doing assessment of oral communication skills on that level at the time. So, in conclusion, we did very well, and we probably shouldn't have dumped the requirement. But it's too late now.
So the third outcome we assessed for our general education curriculum was on technology. So our institutional outcome is graduates will demonstrate the ability to select and use information, resources, and technology appropriate to the work of the discipline to achieve the following goals: retrieve, evaluate, manipulate, or present information in task-appropriate ways. Create, format, present text, images, or other media in an audience-aware manner. Understand legal, ethical, privacy, or security issues critical to the use of information technology. Now, assessing technology became a little bit more of a challenge for us. We were not able to create a common rubric to use across the curriculum. So we created a couple of rubrics that we were able to use across the curriculum, and Linda's going to talk a little bit more about those results.
Yes, this was the weird one for us, actually. As you can see, the results didn't come out too well. 73% of the departments said that they met whatever their T-skills expectations were. In every department, we couldn't even find any common ground anywhere. You would have thought everybody did word processing, but there were certain departments that said, oh no, they didn't expect their students to know how to word process. So we couldn't even use that. The music department wanted everybody to be able to handle music notation software. The art department wanted people to be able to use Photoshop. The English department wanted higher order word processing skills. The chemistry department's idea of technology was all sorts of really complicated equipment connected to computers. we couldn't find any common ground whatsoever. So we just abandoned the attempt to come up with a single rubric. We wrote some sample ones. You know, if you're doing using PowerPoint and you want to use that to assess, here's a sample rubric. If you're using Excel spreadsheets, we made a sample rubric for that. And so the departments could go wherever they wanted, or they could make their own rubric for situations that we hadn't even considered. So that was pretty hairy, actually. But we couldn't come up with anything. The assessment has to be based on what departmental technology student learning outcomes have been developed. And they took a variety of forms, and they assessed different skills. And I think in some ways this was the least successful in that we had really no sense of what was happening anywhere. And a lot of the departments discovered they were really not teaching, or else they said their rubrics, and made the rubrics too difficult, but they were actually not teaching the skills very well. It's also possible that they are not teaching the skills so well, but it could also be that the rubrics are too difficult and too demanding. So that was a case where we fell short. 73%. That's still not that bad, but it's not what we had wanted. So we asked relevant departments to review their technology student learning outcomes to see if they actually have created an impossible situation for anyone to master. Perhaps review their assessment processes, which may have been a little bit too haphazard or too difficult. And it might just be that they need to actually improve and more consciously think about how they're teaching technology skills relevant to the majors. So they might want to think about how they might close the loop and improve the teaching of the various skills.
So in 2016-17 academic year, we were able to assess written communication, oral communication, and technology skills. And as I mentioned earlier, this academic year we are assessing scientific reasoning, logical reasoning, critical and analytical reasoning, and information technology. Scientific reasoning, logical reasoning, and critical and analytical reasoning are all being assessed with a common rubric. They're all being assessed a little bit different because scientific reasoning is actually being assessed in courses that are carrying a scientific designation. And logical reasoning, the same thing. These are being assessed in courses carrying a logical reasoning. And with critical and analytical reasoning, we're doing something a little bit different. I'm in the process of collecting writing samples from juniors and seniors. And those writing samples will be reviewed by a small group of faculty across disciplines using a common rubric. And then we will be using the HEADS survey. And that's something that I would encourage you to think about looking at if you're a private school is joining the HEADS consortium. So for 2018-2019, we're still in progress. We do have a lot going on at the institution with assessment. We're in the middle of the self-study process. We do know that we will be assessing diversity, integrity, and integrative thinking. The student learning outcomes have been approved by the faculty for diversity and integrative thinking, but we're still working on integrity. And there are faculty who are currently working on rubrics so that we can do the assessment for this, and then we will work on where we will do the assessment and what type of courses and thinking about what type of sample size. So you're probably going to ask me, how did you do this in such a short amount of time at a place like Washington and Jefferson? And one of the ways that we did this is that we held educational workshops for faculty once a month. They were very well attended. We had workshops on general education assessment, program level assessment, how to use rubrics, and how to develop rubrics. But what made these workshops so valuable for faculty that I had faculty who were able to model good examples for their faculty colleagues. So peer-to-peer review in terms of helping each other. I had faculty from psychology, I had faculty from English, and I had faculty from both chemistry and biology. So I looked for faculty from a diverse group of disciplines that could help model how to do good assessment work. So part of the way that we got the faculty buy-in to do this work was education through workshops. I taught you about committee participation. And the more people that you can get involved in assessment at your institution, the better. So there are a number of people who may not be on the assessment committee, but they're involved in developing rubrics and working with their colleagues to help develop rubrics. I regularly give updates at department chair meetings. It's important to have good communication to let your colleagues know what is going on. We give updates at every faculty meeting so faculty know what's going on in regards to assessment. I often have individual meetings with chairs in departments to help them with their assessment work. We have annual report writing help days in the spring where we help faculty write their annual reports about assessment. And we have an assessment manual. That assessment manual documents a whole number of things. It documents all of our general education assessment practices, and it documents all of our department and program level assessment, and it has a number of how-to guides to do specific things related to assessment to help our faculty. It also has some information about course evaluations and our course evaluation procedures and processes. So in the W&J assessment manual, I just mentioned some of the things that were in it. And this manual has really been extremely valuable to us so that faculty have a place to go to find information about assessment. And as you have new faculty come to the institution, it's really helpful because we actually have this book that is ready, and then I can share it with faculty at the new faculty orientation. I'm also in the process of working on a staff assessment manual that will document assessment procedures on the administrative side of the house as it relates to student life, business and finance, HR, development, and enrollment in financial aid. The other thing that's been really important for us as an institution is the documentation of assessment. We have an annual report that is completed by all departments and programs every year. There are 4 sections to this annual report. The first is really about administrative information. The second information is about the faculty, for them to share with us what they are doing. The third section is about their students, so to share with us how many of their students are out doing presentations and those sort of things. And the fourth section, my personal favorite, on goals and assessment. So a colleague of mine in the dean's office, we review the section 4 on assessment every year. I develop a rubric to evaluate this section to be sure that we're providing feedback to the departments each year. So I will send the rubric back to each department with a letter indicating what kind of feedback and what kind of changes that we would like them to make, and to offer any kind of help or support that they might need. That's the end of our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. We've also included our contact information if you would like to contact us to ask any questions. We're both very willing to help you in any way that we can.
And we have cards.
I'll be honest, we're getting lost in this whole integrated reliability issue. With our norming section, are they agreeing, and are you having that issue as well? And if so, how do you handle it?
Well, I can tell you what we did in our department. As all the people who are going to be doing the writing rubric and the critical thinking thing are actually gathering together one afternoon. They're doing 1 or 2 of the papers together, comparing the results, and then we're sending them all off on their own. Another possibility is you simply have 2 people each rate the same one assignment and then average the results. We did that with our oral presentations in the department because we couldn't norm them, because in one case we were actually dealing with capstone presentations and they had to be done on the spot.
So that's the issue we're having.
Yeah.
They're on the spot, and I had people do it, and they're not agreeing.
Well, they do need to sit down and talk together a little bit before they start, I think.
They need to calibrate the rubric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the issue.
And, you know, any average, it will come out about right. So at least it'll be consistent across all the numbers, won't it?
I mean,
And that's good enough, I think.
the other thing that we've discussed among the faculty at our institution, this is not scientific research. We are not running a scientific study. I'm from a data-driven discipline, so I mean I have a tendency to want to do those things, but that's not the kind of work that we're doing. And the faculty at my institution, it's taken a little bit of time for them to understand that, but some of the people who do the best assessment work in my institution come from chemistry, biology, and psychology, and they have given the message to their faculty colleagues that this is not scientific research.
I actually have two questions. So the first one, you mentioned that you have, for example, for the oral communication, you have a single rubric that you use across. So by that, do you mean, are you only looking into capstone courses and using this rubric within these courses, or are you going down to what we call at our institution the core courses, or I think that's your breadth courses as well?
Yes.
I mean, to see if they graduate with these within from your general ed curriculum.
Yes, well, the fact is that most of the places we could find presentations to do for the oral communication were in the courses for juniors and seniors. So we just went with that. And it would be nice to know that they had gotten the skills earlier, but all we ask is that by the time they graduate, they can do this. And whether they got it early, yeah.
Offer that within you
Yes.
have them use this rubric.
Yes, just, just so that by the time they get out of our college, they've learned how to do this. And whether we're judging courses at 200 level, 300 level, or 400 level, we're not getting too picky about that, because otherwise we'll never get anything done.
We did not make that decision for the department. The departments made that decision for themselves, where they were going to do the assessment, and they reported that in their annual report. Now, I went through the annual reports, and if I felt that chemistry wanted to assess all 150 of their students, I went back to talk to departments because we looked for a sample size. I certainly did not want to overwhelm departments to assess every student and everything, but we let departments decide and what courses would be best to do the assessment, both for writing, oral communication, and technology.
Okay, so that kind of leads me into my second question, that you mentioned that you will give feedback. I personally, I mean, our institution is quite large. We have 6,000 students, we have a lot. So for me, I have 90 programs. So I'm thinking, how did you make this happen? I don't know how this is even, I mean, I'm doing it, but I'm thinking maybe you have to shift on that.
Well, I'm kind of a Wonder Woman personality. I do have 3 jobs at the college and probably 2 more that no one thinks about, but part of it was that my colleague and I had read the annual report in advance. And he and I both had the rubric in advance, and we had about 30 programs to go through, and it only took us about 4 hours to go through because we had read it in advance. The advantage that both my colleague and I had is that I really keep tabs on knowing what my departments are doing in regards to an assessment, and I'm in communication with them, constantly throughout the year, which made it easier for me to review that. But I would encourage you, if you're going to do that, I mean, with 90 programs, you could probably do it in a day and a half. I had the rubric in advance, read the reports in advance, and so when you go through them, that generally you can do it fairly quickly. Especially if you have a colleague doing it with you. And in your case, you could have a couple of colleagues help you and help delegate this work so that other people have a chance to learn more about the process.
This is also where having the rubric on one side of one piece of paper saves you time, because every time you flip the page back and forth, you've lost time. Because on one side of the sheet of paper, it has the time you spend.
Okay. And I mean, the depth of the feedback that you would give, something like maybe you need to adjust your assessment measures here, you need to, or do you go into more detail with your feedback?
It depends. Some places we told people that they would give us the information about what they were doing for next year. So I might get feedback, your sample size is too large. Most of the things were about your sample size is too large. You forgot to do this assessment. Think more critically about how to close the loop. You started it, but I think you can take it a step further. That was more of most of the feedback I'm going to brag on the faculty at my institution. The faculty at my institution is absolutely exceptional. There's no other faculty like them. And so they have really, really done great work in this process. But they've done this great work because I had senior faculty like Linda who advocated for me and for the process. And we were able to get a lot of people involved to learn more about assessment and to educate them. And our whole model is about education. And faculty obviously understand that because that's what they do. And so if you use a model like that, that will really help you. Yeah.
So I'm curious about the fact that you did this at this moment of shifting the curriculum. Interesting.
And you're going to do president.
And so,
And we have an interim academic dean.
um,
All the way running a self-study.
so I guess my curiosity really is, first of all, I'm curious about how you establish 80% as your goal. And then, so what happens, I think, or what kind of advice can you give us when you do assessment and it basically validates you're all doing a great job? When our argument about assessment is we want to improve student learning. And, so can you talk about that a little bit, about that tension there, I guess?
There's only so much time, and you have to pick your fights. And one advantage of assessment was telling us where we needed to put the time and where we could not put the time. And so we are a very high caliber college with high caliber students and high caliber faculty. And so we've been in pretty good shape for quite a while. But as you saw from our results, there were a couple of places which was not quite what we would have liked. And so we're going to be spending our attention on that, and we're not going to worry about the other things because apparently they're okay.
And we may learn in our revised curriculum that the next time we do the assessment that something happens with oral communication. So we may need to work harder there. I think we're prepared for that. But we wanted to spend our energy working on things with writing and technology to do some improvements there.
And how do you get 80%? Essentially, we pulled it out of a hat. So.
Yeah.
My question is about your learning outcomes that you're doing 3 or 4 a year. After you finish the ones on the slide, do you go back and start again with the first? So are you assessing each area every 3 years? Or
No, not every 3 years. I keep saying every 5 years, and I keep saying every 4 years.
We're in some discussion about that because this is the first assessment cycle we have been through. And the other thing we may learn is that we may need to assess some other things along the way. So that's still up for discussion.
Yeah, we started with the low-hanging fruit.
Things that were easiest for us to assess, yeah.
what kind of sample size were you asking? I know your departments can choose, but where did you end up falling into our sample size?
Well, it depended on the department. We left a lot of things up to the department because faculty like to be in control of things. That makes them happy and they will do the work. In the English department, we had 30 capstone papers that we've been accumulating over 2 or 3 semesters that we pulled, and then we ended up using, I think, only 10 of those 30.
So our student body is right at 1,400. So I was looking for about 250. That was a total sample size around 250 across the college,
Yeah.
give or take.
So 10 came from our department, 20 came from the business department, and 20 from psychology, and so that's, you accumulated a reasonable number.
We also thought about it, some departments are larger than others. I mean, at our school, chemistry is very large, psychology is very large, business is very large. So we took a little bit of larger sample sizes from departments that were a bit larger than perhaps some smaller departments like philosophy or sociology as part of our process. Other questions?
So I know this is the general education, but this cycle of evaluation, can you look at other aspects of the college, like administration and, other services,
So I can answer that question on the administrative side of the house. So how we do assessment at WJ on the administrative side of the house right now, we've just finished our first cycle, obviously going into our second academic year. So every administrative unit, and when I say that, that's residence life, that's business and finance, that's HR, and in student plan?
And as far as departments are going, well, departments have already developed their own outcomes for each major, and they've cycled through as many, whatever they set up. The English department, for example, has 10 student learning outcomes that we've established, and we've decided we're going to do 2 a year and on a 5-year cycle, because we still have to do other bits of assessment. One of the things I learned at the first Middle States meeting that I went to, I think it was the town hall on how to do assessment, and they said, valuable word, do not presume upon the goodwill of your colleagues. So I always keep that in mind and always try to think about how to keep things from driving us mad, because we do all, after all, have other things that we're supposed to be doing, and the deadline is usually tomorrow. So assessment is just another thing that's been dropped down on top of us. We've got to be able to work it in a manageable fashion, or it isn't going to get done.
Sustainability is key for us, and it should be key for all of your institutions, because if you try to assess too many things too fast, people will get burnt out.
You have to get remote.
So you mentioned that you are working on aligning the assessment to the strategic plan. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Very little, because the strategic planning process is going to start in February. But I can talk to you about that, come spring.
The old ones have expired, we now have a new president, we have to do a new one, and that, we're doing that on top of everything else.
Can you repeat the question?
Can you repeat her question?
Oh, this is nice too.
So I was asking about how they would align the assessment to the strategic planning. You mentioned that.
She's asking, how do we align assessment to the strategic plan? We're not there yet. Other questions? Okay, thank you all. We'll stick around if anybody